The story of Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar, and the gifts they brought to the newborn king, and of how they saw the star and followed it for weeks across mountain and valley and desert. In stately procession on their swaying beasts, they came and placed their treasures at the feet of the infant Savior. And what were their gifts? Ah, you say, everyone knows that. They brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So, since the earliest days, the story has been told. But there you are wrong. The story is incomplete. You see, the story was told by those who had seen the wise men on their journey, and by those who stood by in wonderment as the wise men dismounted from their weary camels and strode to the door of the rude stable. They watched as the wise men held their jeweled caskets high before them. That much the world saw, and so the story has been told. But that is not the whole story. And if you listen very carefully and very quietly, you shall hear the rest of it. You shall hear what happened when the wise men entered the stable, and you shall learn the secret of the gifts. The first of the three visitors to approach the stable was Caspar. His cloak was of the finest velvet, trimmed with flawless fur. At his waist and throat were clusters of gems, for Caspar was a wealthy man. Those who watched saw only that he paused at the stable door. He prays, they whispered to one another as they saw Caspar's lips move, but they were mistaken. They could not see that it was the angel Gabriel guarding the holy place before whom Caspar stopped. Gabriel spoke to Caspar in a voice that was firm, but not unkind.
And who are you?
I am Caspar, and I come to worship the king.
All who enter here must bring a gift. Have you a gift?
Indeed I have.
He held aloft a finely wrought box. It was small, yet so heavy that his arms could hardly raise it.
I brought bars of the finest gold.
Your gift must be the essence of yourself. It must be something precious to your soul.
Such have I brought.
So shall it be.
And Gabriel held the door for Caspar to enter. And there, before the rough board wall of the stable, lay the king he had traveled so far to see. The light of the lamp fell across the tiny face and glinted back from the dark, bright eyes. In the shadows sat the parents, motionless and silent. And beyond them, Caspar sensed the presence of the sheep and oxen who stood their reverent watch. Caspar advanced a step, and then another. He had just knelt to lay his gold before the child when he stopped and stood erect. There in his outstretched hands lay not gold, but a hammer. Its scarred and blackened head was larger than a man's fist, and its handle was of sinewy wood as long as a man's forearm. Caspar stammered as he stared, dumbfounded, at the heavy tool, and then softly, from behind him, he heard the voice of Gabriel.
So shall it be, and so it is. You have brought the essence of yourself.
A hammer? What foul magic is this?
None but the magic of truth. What you hold in your hands is the hammer of your greed. You have used it to pound wealth from those who labor, so that you may live in luxury. You have used it to build a mansion for yourself, while others dwell in hovels. You have raised it against friends and made them as enemies, against enemies to destroy them.
And suddenly Caspar knew the truth. Bowed with shame, he turned to leave, but Gabriel blocked his way.
No, you have not offered your gift.
Give this? I can't give this to a king.
But you must. That is why you came. And you cannot take it back with you. It is too heavy. You have carried it for many years, and even now your arms ache with its weight. You must leave it here, or it will destroy you.
The hammer is heavy. The child cannot lift it.
He is the only one who can.
But it is dangerous. He could bruise his hands or his feet.
That worry you must leave to heaven. The hammer shall find its place.
Caspar knew the angel spoke the truth. The waiting world saw only the smile that wreathed Caspar's face as he emerged from the stable. His hands were raised as though the wings of angels graced his fingers. That much the world saw, and so the story is told. Next to step to the door of the stable was Melchior, the learned Melchior. He was not so resplendent as Caspar, for he wore the darker robes of the scholar, but the length of his beard and the furrows in his brow bespoke one who had lived long with the wisdom of the ages. A hush fell over the onlookers as he too paused before the door. But only Melchior could see the angel who stood guard. Only Melchior could hear the words spoken.
What have you brought?
I have brought frankincense, the fragrance of hidden lands in bygone days.
Your gift must be something precious to your soul.
Of course it is.
Then enter, and we shall see.
And Gabriel led him to the door. Melchior stood breathless before the scene within. In all his many years of searching for elusive truth, he had never sensed such a presence as this. He knelt reverently, and from beneath his robe he withdrew the silver flask of precious ointment. But then he drew back and stared. The vessel in his hand was not silver at all. It was common wood, rough and stained, as might be found in the humblest cupboard. Aghast, he pulled the stopper from its mouth and sniffed the contents. Then he leapt to his feet, only to face the angel at the door.
I've been tricked. This is not frankincense I brought.
What is it then?
It is vinegar.
So shall it be, and so it is. You approach, you are made of.
You are an angel of fools.
You bring the bitterness of your heart, the sour wine of life turned grim with jealousy and hate. You have carried within you too long the memory of old hurts. You have hoarded your resentments and breathed on sparks of anger until they have become as embers, smoldering within you. You have sought for knowledge, but you have filled your life with poison.
As he heard these words, Melchior's shoulders dropped. He turned his face away from Gabriel and fumbled with his robe, as though to hide the wooden jar. Silently he sidled toward the door, but Gabriel smiled gently and placed a hand on Melchior's shoulder.
Wait, you must leave your gift.
Oh, I wish I could. For how long I've yearned to empty my soul of this bitterness. You have spoken the truth, my friend, but I cannot leave it here, not at the feet of love and innocence.
But you can, and you must, if you would be clean. This is the only place you can leave it.
This is vile and bitter stuff. What if the child should touch it to his lips?
You must leave that worry to heaven. There is use even for vinegar.
So Melchior placed his gift before the Savior. And they say that when he came out of the stable, his eyes shone with the clearest light of heaven's truth. His skin was as smooth as a youth's as he lifted his face to gaze on horizons he had never seen before. And in that, at least, the story is correct. There was yet one more visitor to make his offering. He strode forward now, his back as straight as a tree, shoulders firm as an oaken beam. He walked as one born to command. This was Balthasar, leader of many legions, scourge of walled cities. Before him he carried a brass-bound box. A murmur ran through those who watched as they saw him hesitate before the door. Look, they whispered. Even the great Balthasar does obeisance before the king who waits within. But we know that it was Gabriel who caused the warrior to pause. And we know, too, the question that was put.
Have you a gift?
Of course. I bring myrrh, the pride of my booty, the boldest of my conquests. For centuries, many have fought and died for this. It is the essence of the rarest earth.
But is it the essence of yourself?
It is.
Then come, and we shall see.
Even the fearless Balthazar was not prepared for the wave of awe that struck him as he entered the holy place of the Christ child. He felt a weakness in his knees such as he had never known before. Closing his eyes, he knelt and shuffled forward through the straw in reverence. Then, bowing until his face was near the ground, he slowly released his grip upon the box and raised his head and opened his eyes. What lay before him at the baby's feet was his own spear. Its smooth, round staff still glistened where the sweat of his palms had moistened it, and the razor edges of its steely tip caught the flickering light of the lamp.
It cannot be. Some enemy has cast a spell.
That is more true than you know. 1,000 enemies have cast their spell on you and turned your soul into a spear.
You speak in riddles. I will teach you to jest with me at this time.
Living only to conquer, you have been conquered. Each battle you win leads you only to another with a foe yet more formidable.
Do you think I like to kill? You know nothing, Angel. You know nothing of this world. I am the defender of my people. Even now, my enemies are massing. I must leave this holy place and buy more spears. I must raise more armies, and then...
More? More than what?
More than we have now.
And what will they do then? Will your enemies too need more?
Balthazar heard the angel's words, and they seemed to echo in the deepest places of his soul as though vaguely familiar. Was the question one that he had sometimes asked himself? Was it that faintest flicker of doubt, quickly stifled by one who did not dare to doubt? For a moment, Balthazar hesitated. Then, taking control of himself, he reached down and grasped his spear and turned toward the door.
I cannot leave this here. My people need it.
Are you sure that you can afford to keep it?
We cannot risk this spear.
Yes, it is a risk to leave it here, but your way is a certainty. Certainty of spears.
Once again, Balthazar hesitated, and once again the sweat of his palm moistened the smooth shaft of the spear. But now the bead stood out on his forehead as well, as the force of Gabriel's words did battle with centuries of warrior instinct. A long moment passed. Finally, Balthazar loosed his grip, and the spear dropped toward the floor. But as he looked at the child at his feet, he whispered anxiously to Gabriel.
But here? Can I leave it here?
The angel released a long-held breath and replied,
This is the only safe place to leave it.
But he is a child, and the spear is sharp. Surely it will pierce his flesh.
That fear you must leave to heaven.
and they say that Balthazar went calmly from the stable, his arms hanging gently at his side. They say that he walked first to Caspar and Melchior, where they waited, and embraced them as brothers. Then, turning to the others who watched, they went first to one and then to the next, enfolding each in their outstretched arms as those greeting beloved friends whom they have not seen for a very long time. That, at least, is how the story has always been told, and it is true as far as it goes. But you have listened well, and now you know the whole of it. Now you too may kneel before the Christ child to leave at his feet those unseen secret things that may be left nowhere else but there. And having visited the holy place, you too, like those 3 visitors of old, may go on your way, made new. But what of the gifts, you ask? What of the hammer and the vinegar and the spear? Well, there is another story about them and how they were seen once more, years later in fact, on a lonely hill outside of Bethlehem. But do not worry. That is a burden that heaven took upon itself as only heaven can and will, even to this very day.